Hi, my name is Emma Bufalini. I'm a massage therapist and I currently own Emalani Massage Therapy. We are doing a couples class for massage. We're teaching you some basic techniques and some body mechanics in order for you to work on your partner comfortably and easily. We're just gonna give you some information that's really gonna change the way that you approach massage. It's gonna teach you some things that will help you to do massage without hurting your own body while you're trying to be kind and loving to another partner. Now, all of this is done clothed. We're wearing very loose clothing, mostly t-shirts and like basketball shorts, so you can do this with a friend as well. Nothing in here is going to get across any boundaries. We're gonna stay nice and professional the whole time, and you don't even need any special equipment either. We're gonna be working on a chair as well as on the floor with a blanket and a pillow. So it's a pretty easy class. It's an introductory class that anybody can do. This is part two of the couples massage class where we're gonna be working on the floor. Our partner can lay on a blanket that is cushioning them from the floor. I have one that's folded in half with a pillow as well. And we're gonna be approaching them while also sitting and kneeling on the floor. So having an extra pillow or bolster with you is also helpful. Welcome, this is the second part of the couples class. We're doing work on the floor. And the reason why is because most people don't have a massage table, and sometimes beds aren't the most comfortable place to do massage. So we're doing the most accessible version, which is floor massage. We already did chair in the first part, so this is just an adaptation for certain other methods that are a little bit more comfortable or easy to do depending on your body mechanics. You'll see throughout the video that I may lose some body mechanics and I may crouch over a little bit. Everybody does that. But when you notice you're doing it, try to sit up straight again. Try to adjust your body mechanics so you're not hurting or aching anywhere or you're not straining any part of your body. It's okay if you lose that little bit of straightness throughout the process, but just kind of remind yourself. You'll get better at it over time. Now, another reminder is that, again, we're not doing grabby claws. We're not doing the separate fingers thing. We're going to try to keep our hands together, and we're not going to use our thumbs alone to try to put pressure on somebody. We're going to use our body mechanics to try to put pressure through our whole hand to reduce the amount of injury we could do to our hands and our fingers because they're not that strong, okay? So we're going to start with the neck and shoulder. One of the simple things to do that's a little bit difficult for some people is gaining trust if you're not already very comfortable with a person. Working on someone's neck is a trust position because it's a very important part of the body. Now, depending on where they're sitting, you may want to scoot a little closer. So Hank has a pillow under his head. I'm going to press down on the pillow a little bit to get a better angle on him. I'm going to keep my fingers together as I scoop underneath his neck. I'm going to join my fingers in the back and just bring it up so that my hands are underneath his head. I'm just resting. I'm not pulling or anything like that. I'm just letting his head rest in my hands. So see if that's comfortable. See if you can find a good angle for that. Get some good body mechanics. See how that feels. Now what I can do is just make sure that my hands are at the base of his head, right at the top of that neck. And then we're just going to lean back a little bit. This is a very small movement, very small. So I'm just putting a little traction on the top of that neck. Now if someone has damage to their neck or their vertebrae in their cervical vertebrae, you don't want to put traction on it. Now I leaned a little bit forward and I'm pressing up against the pillow and into his neck a little bit. A very small movement again. I'm just kind of holding his head up. How's that feel?
Great.
I feel like your head is floating a little bit above the pillow?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Now I'm going to go back to pulling a little bit. And you can kind of see his chin tucks when I do that. Now when I reverse and push forward, his chin rises just a little bit. Very small movement. You can go back into the neck again and you can join your hands behind the neck with your thumbs kind of riding on the sides of your hands. And do a little bit of a traction again. You're kind of compressing on the sides and the back of the neck and pulling. So that movement is your hands are coming together like this and then pulling, or you're leaning back. The one before, we were scooping under his head, and it was gentle. We're not compressing and grabbing. We're just scooping. Then we lean back and lean forward. Now that we have done underneath the neck, you can do those a couple of times, and you want to go very slow. This is another point where you don't want to rush this. If you're going fast, you're going to end up causing them injury, and you might end up actually causing more agitation with the muscles. So you want to do everything slow, and if it helps, count to 10 before you move. Try to just sit there and be patient, count to 10, and then move a little bit, and then count to 10, move back. Now we're going to work a little bit on the face. We're going to be working with the temples right here. That's that spot. If you look at the ear, you're going to come forward right between the ears and the eyes. There's a little soft spot right there. You want to be very, very gentle. So you place your thumbs there and you're going to do little circular frictions. Now you notice my thumbs aren't moving by themselves. The rest of my hand goes with it. My wrist isn't moving too much. My whole arm is going with it. This is the kind of thing where you want to check in with your partner and see how that pressure feels. Is that a good pressure for you, Hank?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Now, if you have a kind of partner who says, to everything, which I know what Hank is comfortable with because I've worked with him before. If you're starting to learn a partner, you can ask, would you like more or less pressure? And that prompts them to think about whether they'd like more or less and give you a specific answer instead of a generic. It's a little trick that helps you get the right answer that you're looking for. Now, if this is uncomfortable, if your thumbs don't feel good doing that, you can also take the pads of your fingers, again, together, and you could do those same circular frictions with the tips of your fingers. And with this one, you want to do both sides of the head at the same time, because otherwise you'll be pushing their face to the side, which doesn't feel good. From here, we're going to track along the eyebrows. So we're not going into the eyes, we're sitting right on top. I'm using all of my fingertip pads at the same time. So we're just lining those up and doing a very gentle compression where I'm just allowing my hands to sit on his face. I'm not pressing really hard, I'm not leaning into this one, I'm just letting my fingers and the weight of my hands sit there. Now I can lean back a little bit and put a little traction on that. Very small movement. I can lean my fingers out and kind of traction them towards his temples. And then with a little bit of lotion, or if their skin is slightly more pliant to this, you can do little circles and frictions down the forehead. And again, you want to keep your fingers together. You're not doing the claws like spread out. You want to keep your fingers together. You can also slide from the brow line up into the hairline. And again, you're keeping your fingers together. And this is very gentle. I'm not using a lot of pressure. I'm not leaning into it. I'm just letting the weight of my hands move his skin. You can also do it with your thumbs. And sit your thumbs right along the brow line. And you can just slide your hands down towards the pillow. Right to the temples. And come back up, put your thumbs together in the middle again. And then slide up and let your hands just fall towards the pillow and his hairline. Now, when you get to the hairline, you can massage within the hairline, but you have to be very gentle. Some people may not like that. You're going to mess up their hair, or it might feel uncomfortable. It might pull on hair. So that's up to you and your partner whether or not you like your hair worked on. With Hank's hair, it's short. It's a little easy to work with. So again, you notice I kind of started grabbing with my fingers spread out, so I brought them back together. So you're going to do those same circles you did on the temples. My thumbs are just along for the ride. They're not pushing. You can bring that all the way up to the crown of the head. If it's easier at the top of the head, you can use the flat of your fingers to just press gently. You can also, if it is comfortable for your partner, you can hook into their hair gently and just do a little bit of a traction where you're pulling on the skin. And again, this is a small, small movement. How's that feel for you, Hank?
Very good.
Good. So you'll notice I'm not pulling very hard. I'm just kind of putting my fingers into his hair and then like gently relaxing my hands into it. Now with this, you're not sliding off the hair. You're very gently just holding it. We're going to scoop your hair back to where it was before again.
Thank you.
All right. So you can return to those temples. And then we're going to move on towards the cheeks. So right underneath the eye line, we're going to press along the cheekbones. And we're pressing down towards the bottom of his face. We're not pressing up into the eyes. And as you saw, I just put my hands there and my thumbs there and I relaxed and my whole hand moved. It wasn't just my thumb pressing. With the face, you always go from the center out. So with the eye, anything below the eyes is going to go down and out. Anything above the eyes is going to go up and out. So with this, we are pressing down and out. Now you can use your fingertips. And again, this one, you're just going to set them right next to each other, right on that line. You're going to press down and out. Now, I don't have lotion on my hands or on his face, so what I'm doing is when I move, I relax my pressure, I move, and I reapply the pressure. I'm not pulling the skin. Now, you can use lotion, and again, I would suggest using a professional lotion, not something that is intended for other purposes. You can use things like olive oil, but something like a professional massage lotion is designed for this kind of friction to be applied to it. Especially on the face, you want to use something that's designed specifically for it, because that skin is sensitive. So we're going to do that cheek down and out. Now you can do what's called skin rolling, where you're going to actually pinch that cheek a little bit. Now this is a very gentle movement. It does involve the thumb. It's a pinchy move, but you're using the main part of your hand is coming up towards your thumb. Your thumb is just supporting. So you're going to put that right along that ridge line again. You're going to get right in front of the jawline, so right in here. And you're just going to slowly bring your thumb and the rest of your hand together. And this is a very slow move. You don't want to pinch his cheek like your crazy aunt. And you're just letting the skin roll out of your hand as you go. So when my thumb approaches my hand, what I'm doing is I'm just lessening the pressure and sliding it down my whole hand. Not just the thumb, so you notice that that gap never closes all the way. So I'm allowing the skin to roll under my hand. And you can do this on both sides or one side at the same time, depending on how their skin feels and how they like it. And again, you're going out and down, so we're going to his jawline here. That's the direction we're going. So you're going to get a good grasp on the bottom. You're going to put your knuckles against the jawline right above the jaw. And then just slide slowly. Don't let that gap close between your thumb and your knuckles, and slide until you fall off the jaw. Now with guys, especially guys who have facial hair, you can also do the same hair pulling thing where you grab this gently and you just lean a little bit. Very small movement. You just want to tug that skin. It can feel really nice, but you should ask people before you do that to make sure that they're okay with it. And again, you can kind of see like I'm not moving very far. Very light grip where my hands can slip off. I'm not going to move very far. I'm not pulling really hard. It's just a very gentle tug. So that works for guys. Girls, not so much, but it's a nice little treat if you're working on your guy or your friend who has facial hair. All right. Now with that, so we worked from the cheeks down. Now we can work on the jaw right here. So we worked on the temple here. Now you have a hinge right here where your jaw is. That's a little bit lower than your temple. So your temple line is going to line up with the center of your ear and your eye. Your jawline is going to be a little bit below it. So if you look for the earlobe, it's going to be right about where that earlobe is. So this part is what everybody tends to clench. So when you clench your jaw, it's going to be that spot that's really tender. So if you have someone who grinds their teeth at night, someone who clenches their jaw, this is a great spot to work, but it can be really tender, so you want to be very gentle. Now that we've done some of the work down, we did the cheeks down to the sides of the jaw. We did a little bit of a pull on the jaw's facial hair. So the next thing we can do is the actual joint at the jaw. So we did the temple, which is up here. It's between the center of the ear and the eye. With the jaw, it's going to be right about where the earlobe is. So you're going to find that earlobe and you're going to come up to right about where that temple is. So it's right below the temple and right below the ear. So that spot is a really great spot to work if you have somebody who clenches their jaw a lot, who grinds their teeth at night. It can be very sensitive, so we're going to be very gentle here as well, because you don't want to just grind right on there. Again, it is a joint, so we have to be careful, especially because when we're working it, we want to support both sides because you don't want to push someone's jaw to the side. That point right there is the TMJ. So that's the temporal mandibular joint. So the way you can find it, if you're still not sure where it is, you can put your hands right on the sides of their head, right below that temple, and say, can you open your jaw very gently and slowly? And you should be able to feel a movement there, and you'll know you're in the right spot. All right, you can relax your jaw. Now we're just using the fingers, like the pads of our fingers, and we're doing very small, gentle movements. And I'm working on both sides of his face at the same time because I'm supporting the other side of his face so I'm not pushing his jaw out of alignment. Now you can do those small circular frictions, and then when you get to the top of that friction, you can hold it. You can feel that you're sitting right at the top of that joint. And you can say, can you open your jaw and close it slowly a couple of times? And then do you feel a stretch when you do that? Right there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when they close their jaw, you can kind of scoot back up again. It's a small movement. Go ahead and do that one more time, all the way open. And close slowly. So that stretch can be very uncomfortable if someone is used to clenching their jaw down. It can be very helpful, but you want to be very slow and gentle and light with that pressure. So if you're doing that circular friction, you come up to the top and they're wincing, if they're holding their breath, if they're squinting their eyes, relax your pressure off because it's too much. If they do the stretch where they open their mouth and they start making those same faces or they're like making noises about it, tell them to do it a little bit lighter, a little smaller. You don't have to open your jaw all the way and unhinge it. You can just do a small movement like you saw Hank start with and then get bigger over time. Now, we move from that joint. We're going to move to the jawline. So underneath this jaw is a very soft spot. We want to be very careful. Underneath this jaw, you have some of those lymph nodes. And then right at the base of the jaw here, where it comes to the ear, you do have one of your arteries. So we're going to be very careful not to come along those arteries. So I'm just going to take my fingers in very gentle scoops. I'm going to place them right underneath that jawbone. You can relax your thumbs on top of it. And I'm just going to lean back a little bit until I have some pressure on it. And I'm sitting right along the line of the jawbone. I'm not scooping into his neck down here. I'm just right beneath that bone. Now you can kind of rock back and forth here. You're going to scoop a little bit outwards. Again, very, very small movements, very light. You can go a little bit down so that your hands are more towards the back of the jaw without going all the way to the neck. Do it again, and with this one, you're scooping from the center out. So you don't want to go down into the neck, you want to go out. This one can also be very sensitive. How are you doing with that pressure, Hank?
That's good.
Good. Now you can do a gentle, just encompassing stroke like that if you're going to end it there at the face massage, or just kind of make it so that everything feels like it got worked on, kind of remind them that you did work on the forehead and all of that. So that's the face. Now we can move back to that neck and scoop under it. We're going to get right under those occipitals. And we're going to do little circular frictions. These are very small movements. You can kind of see his chin bob as I go up and down. Now these circular movements are, my hands are together underneath his head and I'm just doing this. It's a very small movement. From those circular frictions, we're going to do a little bit of a neck stretch. So I'm going to put one hand underneath his head, supporting it. I'm going to take this arm and I'm going to scoop under to his opposite shoulder. So I'm going to scoop, I'm pressing the pillow down and lifting his head. I'm going to bring my arm underneath and I'm going to relax his head on my arm. I'm going to put my hand on his shoulder. With this one, you are going to be leaning forward with your whole body. If it's uncomfortable, you can change your leg position. Not everybody can sit crisscross and lean forward this way. It's okay if you have to kick a leg out or reposition or do this from a different angle. But what you want to do is make sure it's comfortable for you and you're not straining. For me, this is pretty comfortable. I have a very flexible back and a lot of support there. So I'm just leaning his head that way. I can lean up a little bit to give his neck a stretch. Now this one you want to go slow with as well. Make sure that that's okay. That stretch isn't too much.
That's good.
Good. And then I'm supporting his head with this hand so it doesn't just roll in the opposite direction or fall towards the pillow. With any kind of stretch, you want to hold it about 15 to 20 seconds. We may not do that for every stretch with this video, but usually if you count to 15 or 20, that's a really good stretch. And then when you're letting go, you want to go slowly putting his head down. And then you can pull your arm out. And then when it reaches his head, you're going to spin your hand around to grasp his head so that you can do the opposite. So again, we're compressing the pillow and going under, lifting his head as we go, putting our hand on his shoulder, and then lifting it slowly while supporting his head with the other hand. How's that stretch feel?
That's good.
Good. So again, you want to count to about 15 to 20. And again, if you want to kick out a leg, uncross your legs, bring one out this way, change your direction, whatever you have to do to make it comfortable. So we're going to bring his head down slowly. You can see it turns as I go. My hand is under his head. We're going to roll it over to grab his head and bring it back down. So that gives you control to do other movements if you're going to scoot back under the head when you're in that position. So from here, I'm going to tuck my leg back because it was comfortable the other way for me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scoop my hand under his neck. And this one you may want a lotion for, or you may want to do it without lotion. You're going to meet your fingers in the middle. And what you're going to do is you're just going to bring them forward. So you're just lifting your hands. And you're just doing this across the neck. So what we're doing is we're cradling the back of the neck and then we're just tractioning up. So you're tractioning apart and up. And this, you're just letting gravity make his head fall down towards the pillow. So gravity is your friend here. Again, if you're using good body mechanics, this shouldn't strain your body. You shouldn't be holding really tight as you go up. But what it does is if you're using good body mechanics straight back, you just lean back a little bit, sit up nice and straight. and gravity will do the rest for you. All right, we're moving on to the shoulder and the arm. With this, you can do a lot of cool things with the arm. However, you want to be very careful because pressing on the arm into the floor, you're going to be pressing that shoulder blade down, and you don't want to press that into the floor and cause any injuries. You also want to be careful because there's a lot of attachment points in the shoulder, so you want to be very gentle whenever you start working on something, especially with someone who works really hard and might have strained those muscles or has a history of injury, which most people tend to have around the shoulder. With this shoulder, a good place to start is to just get comfortable with that top muscle here. For any kind of person who is working at a desk, who's driving a lot, who's texting a lot, who's on the computer a lot, who's got little kids that they're holding up here, this muscle is going to be really tight and it's going to be a great place to work. Now, a very common question we get, and a lot of people ask it a little bit embarrassed, but it's not an embarrassing question, is, well, what if you're working on your girlfriend or another female and they got a lot of cleavage? What do you do? The answer is the back of the hand. So if you're working on someone's pectoral muscles and their cleavage is sitting high, especially in this position, what you can do is the back of the hand. You're just going to scoot down towards the chest, and then you're going to work on this side. So you're going to scoot down to press your cleavage out of the way, which Hank does not have, and then you can press here. So that gets you access to that pec muscle without being inappropriate or uncomfortable with somebody, especially if you're working with a friend who's casual with you, something like that, someone who's not intimate. This is a way to work with them without feeling like you've gone over a boundary. It's just this is something they actually teach in some medical courses, is the back of the hand is a polite way to move something out of the way. You can do it on the side here too if you're going to work on the ribs. You can just bring it up that way. And you can do that anywhere that you need to block something without feeling like you are grabbing it. So back of the hand if you need to, and then you can work on that pectoral muscle. And again, you want to keep your hand together, a nice little blade right there, fingers together. Now, if you're not using that to move something out of the way, you can stack your fingers. And what this does is it reinforces it here so your fingers don't bend back a lot. So you're going to be putting pressure on both. Now, one of the things we teach in massage school is that when you're doing this, you want to relax the bottom hand. This hand is along for the ride. This hand is doing the pressure. And the reason why is because if you're pressing with both hands, you're not paying attention to what you feel. So if you relax this hand, you can feel the tension, you can feel the knots, you can start to learn where that tissue lies. So you can relax that hand, press with your hand on top. And it's up to you whichever way feels comfortable. If this isn't comfortable, you can find another alternative to it. But you're pressing down away from the head, and then you can press in towards that central bone, or you can scoop away from it too. Or you can do circular frictions. If the fingertips are uncomfortable, you can use a closed fist that's very gentle. So with this one, you're stacking your joints. You're using the blade of your knuckles here. Your wrist is straight, your elbow is straight, your shoulder is straight, and we're leaning our body forward into it. How does that feel compared to me using my fingertips?
That's better, I think.
It's better? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is a deeper pressure. If someone likes a lot of deep work, this is the way to do it. If they say, hey, could you press harder? Change your tactic to match that kind of pressure. And you can just hold. You can just sit here like this for a while. Now keep in mind there's the clavicle here. We are not pressing on the clavicle. We're beneath the clavicle. We're also not on the rotator cuff or the shoulder bone, which is up here. We're beneath that as well. Now you can come around. You can scoop right at that pectoral and you can kind of grab that shoulder and roll it. So what I'm doing is I have this hand as a cup on the front and this hand as a cup on the back, and I'm just doing this motion. I'm kind of pushing it back and pulling. So I'm pushing down and then pulling towards me, and pushing down, pulling towards me. So forward, pull, forward, pull. And it kind of loosens up what's in the rotator cuff. I can scoop under this shoulder right at the base of the neck, and I can lean a little bit and get a good traction on there. I can scoop under that shoulder blade and get a good grasp on the shoulder blade and pull. Again, you want to be gentle with this because it's a spot that you're pushing against the ground and you're also pulling on a bone structure. And this isn't a huge move. I'm not like holding Hank and pulling my whole body back. I'm just putting my hand underneath him and then I'm leaning a little bit to get some pressure on there. So I'm going to put my hand under Hank on his shoulder there. My thumb is not squeezing. It's just along for the ride. It's just steadying his shoulder. And then I lean. Yeah, that's a good one. Now you can do it with both hands. You might need a different angle for that. So since I'm leaning away from his shoulder blade, I can do both hands together. I'm going to put them next to each other. And this is going to lift his body a little bit as I adjust in there. And then I can just sit up nicely. Get my hands into a good comfortable position and sit up gently. So what I'm doing is I'm just scooping that shoulder blade. You can feel it when you're moving around, but you're just gonna like hold on to that and then move a little bit. That creates that friction. Another thing you can do that's really nice with the shoulder is a traction. And again, you wanna be very careful with somebody who might be hypermobile or have any kind of injuries here. You don't wanna do this traction on them. This is a good place to do a very gentle traction because unlike when you're standing, you don't have as much travel with your body. So when I lean back, this traction is going to be very gentle. Again, I'm supporting his upper arm. I'm supporting that joint at the elbow. And then I'm supporting the wrist here. So I'm leaning with my body once I get a good hold on him. I'm not pulling the hand here alone because that way I would be putting strain on the wrist and also on the elbow. So again, supporting below that wrist and below that elbow, and then you just lean a little bit. You could do it at a different angle too. You could do it down, you could do it a little bit up. You can even bring their arm through a range of motion and do a stretch where you bring it all the way up towards their ear. With this one, you want to be gentle with it. If you have someone who's an office worker driving a lot, when you bring their arm up in this position, they're going to feel it in their underarm, right by the shoulder blade in the back. And you can press on that gently. And that gives it a little bit of a stretch. But this is a very small move. All I'm doing is I'm putting my hand here, right against the back side of their underarm. So if you imagine where the seam of the shirt line is right here, you're going to put your hand right on that side and just lean forward a little bit. You can bring that arm back over. Now with the arm, what we can do is I'm going to roll his sleeve up. You can do compressions like we did before. You're going to do a C shape and compress. So you're just going to lean forward. You can put an arm for support here just to make sure his arm doesn't go flying off of my leg. I'm using my leg as a support just because it gives it a little bit of height towards me. This may not be comfortable for everybody. And again, you can adjust. You can swing your leg out. You can also just adjust your body mechanics in what direction you're leaning. But again, you want to lean mostly towards him. So I'm going to bring that leg back in because I like it that way. Lean his arm against it. Support here. It's just riding along. And then we're going to go compress. 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 Now what I'm doing is every time I move, I'm relaxing my arm. I'm not putting any pressure, and then I move and I compress. Now with the arm, you can rotate it so that it's down so that you have the top of the arm. And you can rotate it so that it's up so you have the underarm. And you can do different kinds of compressions. You can do a double C. So you're doing this and you're compressing. And again, those thumbs are not pressing by themselves. Your whole hand is pushing. Now, when you get to the elbow, You want to be very gentle here because this is a soft and squishy spot that has a lot of travel in it, where you've got your nerves, you've got your veins, you've got your vascular system and your lymph nodes. You want to be really careful not to just put your thumbs right into that and dig in. So whenever you get to a joint like that, you're going to be very gentle around it. You can go above it, you can go below it, you can travel over it softly, but we're not going to put our whole weight on a joint. So I suggest doing from the top and then also doing the bottom of any arm. You can travel down to the forearm. For anybody who works at a desk, drives a lot, has a lot of texting going on, this is going to feel amazing. Now I'm going to get up and get some lotion because lotion is helpful when we're working on arms and bare skin. So again, I'm going to suggest that you use a professional lotion. It's less critical when you're working on arms and legs just because they're more tolerant to friction, but a professional lotion will be your best option because it's meant for this. It's meant to have pressure and friction applied to it. It doesn't dry up and get sticky, and it doesn't cause skin irritation. Mine in particular is Bonvital, and it's not sponsored. It's just the one that I prefer from years of use. They do a really good hypoallergenic. So if you have someone who's sensitive to a lot of things, this is a good one to go to. If you don't have that, the best backup that everybody has in their kitchen is olive oil. Olive oil is a great choice. It will stain your sheets, and it will dry up and get sticky kind of quickly. So with olive oil, you have to reapply a lot, and you should probably put down a blanket that you're okay with getting oil stains on. So with this, we only had a pea-sized amount. We're going to run up his arm from his forearm. You don't need a lot when you're using a professional lotion because it's meant to last for a while, and it gives you a lot of glide for what you get. So now Hank has a lot of hair on his arm like most guys do. I'm going to put a little bit more lotion on the back of his arm. And again, you want those fingers to stay together. Sometimes you'll notice mine separate, but I bring them back together when I notice that. Now with this, we're going to do a squish. We're going to do kind of a compression and a pull. And again, my thumbs aren't doing all the work. We're using the whole hand. So compressing and pulling very gently. You notice my body rocks back with that pull. So you heard me say before, we're not going to use our thumbs, and I'm telling you that we're using our thumbs a lot. What we're doing is we're using our thumbs as support. What a lot of people want to do is they want to do this motion with their thumbs. They want to do rotations and they're pushing with this thumb muscle. That's the way that you hurt your thumbs and you don't last very long. If you're using them as support where they're just sitting there and they're along for the ride or they're giving you pressure against the rest of your hand, that's the way your hand is designed to work best. It gives you the most strength. It's similar to if you're working in any kind of martial art, they will tell you that your thumb and your hand should be together in order to get a good grip, because otherwise you're weakening your hand by putting it in any other position where you're just using your thumbs. So with this one, what I'm doing is I'm doing that same grip and I'm pulling down. Make sure you have enough lotion for this one because you don't want to pull someone's hair. And I can follow it with a reverse C grip where I'm just using that C grip and I'm pulling down. And you notice my arm winged out, it went out here. That can be helpful if your body mechanics work that way. Otherwise, you can bring it into your body and lean with your whole body. You're going to notice you do little mistakes like that. I do it all the time. I'm a professional. I've been doing this for years, and I still wing my arms out and push with my thumbs and those kinds of things. But this is a matter of teaching yourself to do it the right way. Now we can bring ourselves out this way. We're going to bring his arm out. And I'm going to support it with my foot just because I can. I'm going to push in towards his forearm and up his arm. You notice how my hand rotates out a little bit as it goes into the elbow. And start again at the base of the hand. We're using the whole bottom of our hand, full contact. That's the other trick of massage is full contact. You want to use the whole surface of your hand as much as possible. Because if you're just using your fingertips all the time, it'll feel very pokey. But if you use that full contact, how's that feel, Hank?
Excellent.
Does it feel like a good stretch down your arm, like we're getting all of those muscles involved?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Now we can do little circular frictions. We're going to follow those muscles up the arm. Back towards your hand. Now we're going to ride all the way back down at that full contact again. Now with the inner arm, we can do compressions where we're pressing down. We're using this part of our hand to press. Our thumbs are just along for the ride. We're kind of spreading out. You're going outward and down. You can do the opposite where you're lifting. This is kind of like the hand and the arm from the other video, where you're rolling up. With the forearm, it's meaty here. There's a lot of muscle here. As long as your elbow is supported, so I've got a soft blanket underneath Hank that's been folded in half, so it's not pressing it directly into the hardwood floors. You can take the knuckles of your hand and you can ride them down his forearm. Again, you're going to start very light, very gentle. You're going to see if that's an okay pressure, if it's not hurting the elbow. You want to make sure you have enough lotion here. And then as I'm getting to that elbow, I'm relaxing and reducing my pressure as I get into here because I don't want to compress that with my full weight. So you can do that a couple of times and you can really break up that tension in the forearm. You can also rotate the arm over and do a lot of that on the back here. You can run your hand down there. So I'm going to do a little bit more lotion here. I'm going to do down the forearm with the knuckles. And here I'm supporting his hand because I rotated it over. I don't want it to roll as I'm going. Now with the meat of your arm here, these are the muscles that control your fingertips. So a lot of your hand is actually made of tendon. So one of the fun things you can do is you can have someone's arm upright. You're going to kind of create a collar with your hands. My thumbs are connected behind. My hands are going to come together in the middle. I'm going to squeeze a little bit and I'm going to go down the arm. So I'm creating pressure and I'm pulling on all those muscles. And again, you want to have enough lotion. Do I have enough lotion, Hank? Good? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now you can do it with your fingers where you are compressing this way. You've got the back of your hands together and your fingers in the front and you can compress down the arm. And one other thing you can do, I'm going to get a little bit more lotion for the back of your arm. Just right at the bottom there. Okay. Is as I do that, I'm going to say, Hank, can you wiggle your hand like you're playing the piano? Slowly. How's that feel?
Oh, wow.
Feels different, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So when I have him play the piano in the air while I do that, what he's doing is he's activating all of the muscles in his forearm. So as I'm doing that pressure, that pin, he's stretching, which is another way to break up that tension in the hand and in the forearm. Because this is what controls your hand. This is where the big meaty part that gets really tight is sitting. So when I go down the arm, when I get to right about here, he starts real feeling it. So I get to the bottom of the arm, you get that really good deep stretch. All right. So I'm going to have you relax your arm. I'm going to fix your shoulders, your shirt. All right. So now we're going to get into the wrist and hand. A lot of people have a lot of issues with their hands, especially if they're working on computers a lot and with the wrist. One of the things we tend to do is sit this way with our arms down. We tend to let our hands drop. This is called wrist drop. It's how you cause an impingement at the wrist. So people who tend to have problems with that tend to be people who work in offices, again, who are texting a lot. So you can just do a very gentle, just grab and pull. You just grab and pull. And my thumbs are just supporting the back. They're not pinching or pulling themselves. I'm just grabbing and pulling with my fingertips. We can transform that by flipping over. Here, we're going to use our thumbs. We're just going to let them slide along as we lean back. So we're coming up from the wrist through that center spot in the hand into the hand. So you can do it one-handed. You can do it two-handed. And in this case, you're going to let it slide over the thumb and then out a little bit. So we're going to get a good grasp. We're just going to lean. We're letting the weight of his hand slide through ours with gravity. Now you can hook into the thumb right there using that pinch we taught in the other video where we're going to pinch right in there. You can repeat the hand video from the chair massage. However, in the chair massage, I believe I had a different grasp of the hand that wasn't quite right. You have to play with your body mechanics and what works best for you. What I did in the previous video was to link my hands into Hank's in that way. What you can also do is you can back out of this hold and just put your fingers like that. So that way you have more ability to grasp in the middle. So if you lock your hands in further together, you may not be able to press down on the center of the hand or to move it outward because you will be a little bit too entangled. You can adjust where your hands sit and how you do this in order to get a good grasp. But either way, it gives it a good stretch. And if you can't get your thumbs to the center, you can just open your hands and give their hand a good stretch and then come back at it from a different angle when you're not entangled. You can also rotate their hand over, and you could do the same kind of compression and pull on this side. Again, we're not pulling his arm with our full body weight right here. I'm supporting his hand, and I'm giving it a little tug. And you'll notice that like I've got a grasp on his wrist, so I'm not just on the hand itself. Go down each of the fingers. You do a little wiggle. With the fingers, you want to do the sides in between the knuckles as well as the top and bottom in between the knuckles. And that little wiggle, you can kind of get both. And then you can go back to press in here. You're going to grab that thumb and give it a good squeeze and just lean back and let that fall through. That thumb part is the part that we use a lot. So anytime that you can come back to that spot and just kind of work on it for a moment is going to feel great. You're making silly faces. I love it. Hank does woodworking, so he uses his hands a lot. So this spot is really tight on him, which is why he's making happy faces while I'm working on him. Another thing you can do, and this depends on your partner's preference for pressure, is you can use your elbow in this case. Again, this is a body mechanics thing that like I am comfortable doing, but not very many people are. I would suggest shifting so that you'll be rotating a little bit. You're going to put it on your knee. You're just going to lean with your hand behind it to support the wrist. Lean into it. That's one way to do a lot of pressure. If your partner is like heavier, more pressure, more, like you can just do this. If they want really direct pressure right in that thumb, and I'm going to go gentle with Hank, you're going to come around to support it a little bit, so it's hard to see on the camera, but you're going to sit that elbow, the little elbow point is going to be a very small point. And then you can just lean on it like the thinker. How's that feel?
I think that's a little too much for me.
All right, so we're going to back out.
I really like it.
Yeah. Yep. So we went really gentle, but it's still a really intense position to put somebody in because we do have his hand open, and then we're putting a tiny little spot right here into that one little point with our body weight on it. So the smaller the point of contact and the more weight you put, the heavier it will feel, the deeper the pressure will be. So that's why when I'm saying like you're using broad contact is a softer way to do something versus using your elbow or your forearm or your knuckles, it's going to change the kind of contact that they feel. And you'll learn what that is and what they like and what you're comfortable doing as you start practicing this more. And this is why we say get a lot of feedback when you're starting out. So with any arm, what you can do is you can always do compression. So I'm going to get up alongside of Hank. I'm going to be on my knees. This may not be comfortable for some people, but you can always put a pillow underneath you or a folded blanket, something like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press on his arm with my body weight. So I'm just going to do that C shape, and then I'm going to lean my body forward. Again, stack joints. So you see my wrist, my elbow, and my shoulder are all on top of each other. So I'm not bending like this. I'm not hyper flexed. I'm just relaxed and in line. And I'm sinking in. Then I'm going to sit up and I'm going to move a little bit and sink in again. And you can do that all the way up the arm. You can do it on the upper arm. When you move, support yourself not on their body. So you can just press. Now you notice that when I do that, my wrist is bent. You can see the crinkles in my wrist. It's not an ideal position. You could also do it with your wrists not bent where you're doing it with the knuckles instead. If that's more comfortable, you just have to be careful that you don't slip off of their arm suddenly. So you want to go very slow, very gentle, make sure you have that traction. You can also just adjust your angle. So I can shift where I'm at a lower angle so that way I'm pushing, but I'm not bending my wrist as far. You have to play with that and see what works for you. Does sitting on the side this way hurt your back? Does sitting up that way hurt your wrist? Do you have to sit forward where you're back in this position and just press down? Whatever you have to do, adjust and try a couple different ways before you end up picking one that hurts your body. Just try it from different angles as much as possible. So we're moving down to the legs right now. What we can do is, this is a bolster. It was about $30 on Amazon. It's a heavy density foam and it's circular. It's just helpful. One of the things you can do is, Hank, I'm going to have you lift your legs. I'm going to put this underneath your knees. So you're going to scoot that right there and then see if that's in a good spot. Go ahead and relax on there. How's that feel?
That's good.
This is a really great thing to use if someone is laying on their back for a while, because we have this curvature of our lower back. And if we're laying with our legs flat the way Hank was before, it can really strain that lower back. Now, not everybody will like or appreciate a bolster. And you can also just use a regular pillow like the one Hank had under his head underneath the legs. You'd put it right about here as well. So you don't have to buy any special equipment. This one is just really nice because it gives you a little bit more support than an average pillow because it's very dense. So it doesn't crush underneath the weight of an average human. Now, Hank, do you want to keep this bolster here or do you want to take it away for now?
Let's keep it.
Okay. So the other reason why this is really good is because when we're pressing on the leg, this doesn't allow his leg to go backwards and lock that knee. It's really good because that way, you know, that can cause strain on the back of the knee as well as the front of the knee if you're putting too much pressure there. So this alleviates it when you're working with someone's leg. Now, again, someone may not want it or it may not feel great, but it's just a good idea to have it there. If you are going to work on someone without a bolster, I just would give you the caution that you should go gentle and make sure you're not pushing their leg beyond its flexibility limits. All right? Now, Hank has basketball shorts on because they're very convenient to work over. They're soft, they're flexy, they move. I'm not going to be pressing on compressed skin, which is what happens when you have like leggings or denim jeans that aren't really flexible or are already flexed. So these allow me to move them out of the way if I need to, or to just work directly over them. Now these are great because guys' basketball shorts actually have 2 layers, so they give me some glide without needing to use lotion in this area. Now we're gonna start with some compressions which don't require glide. Similar to what we were doing with the arm, this is a good way to transition, is to do those compressions while you're seated up, like I was when I was on my knees. So we can sit in this position, we can work down the arm, and then we can just scoot back, and then we can work on the leg. So you want to be careful when you're working on someone's leg. You have the hip flexors right here, and right here is where that like hip starts. So it's right about at the t-shirt line, depending on what kind of t-shirt they're wearing. You want to go to the outside of the leg a little bit at a diagonal. You're not going to press directly down right in the middle, right at the hip, because that can be very uncomfortable. And it might be close to some personal things. So we're going to stay out of personal space. We're going to press here. And again, we're just leaning our body weight into it. And you can kind of notice like his pants will slide with my hand. That's okay. If they start bunching up, you can just take the other hand as you lift and pull. Give it a little tug to flatten it out. Give it a little tug to flatten it out. And you're just going to walk down the leg. And again, we're just being very gentle. I'm using my body weight. I'm just leaning forward a little bit. My wrist and my elbow are bending just a little bit because I'm trying to be gentle. So the front of the leg right here in the quads can cause what's like a tickly hurt if they're really tight. So if someone were to do what I was doing to Hank, I would probably laugh because they're really tight. I stand all day. It feels good to get that work done, but it can also be a little uncomfortable. So you have to be gentle. Don't do the claw on somebody's knee. That's not fun. It's not nice. It's not relaxing. You don't want to squeeze someone's like quads right there because it's not very pleasant. But you can do compressions down and it's a little bit less intense, especially if you're using full contact, that whole hand. Anytime that you use a broader hand, you're going to lessen the impact of that like touch. Going to make it a little more comfortable. Now you notice I shifted from going down the leg, full contact with the palm at the right above the knee. I'm just pressing, and I'm pressing in a little bit. So I'm getting those adductors. Those are these muscles that you sit with a lot. So if you're sitting in a chair, if you're driving, you're using those adductors to keep your knees in front of you all the time. If you're running, biking, any of those activities where you're using your legs, those adductors are going to get tight. And you can reposition to go down. So you can rotate your body so that you're pressing forward and away from the abdomen. You can also scoop out as well. Remember to keep your fingers together. I noticed my pinky was escaping. And again, I'm not crunching with my hand. I'm just getting a good contact and then I'm leaning back my body. Now, if it's sensitive, you can also do two hands. You could just be gentle. Remember not to push too hard. Go slow yourself down. Don't speed up and do this. Like rocking someone's leg doesn't feel good all the time. There is a technique where you rock someone's leg, but it's specific. You can go back to those fists and kind of get into that hip a little bit. Now, one thing is you'll notice his knee, his actual patella is facing that wall. So I'm working a little bit anterior to his leg. What I can do if I notice that his leg is rotating is I can just lift it, rotate it, put it back down, and keep my hand right there. But one of the things that actually tells me if someone's patella is pointing away from the center, if it's not pointing up at the ceiling, is that their IT band is tight. So that's the outside of this leg. So I can actually work on that the same way. I can do compressions in. So my fist is just sitting against the outside of his leg and I'm just pressing in. And again, an IT band is actually mostly fascial band and a lot of ligament and tendon. So you want to be very careful. This is a place where it can be very uncomfortable if you put too much pressure. The main muscle is actually up here where that like pocket is. So you kind of want to get into that more than anything. These are just gentle compressions using our body weight. You can do little circular motions. Circular frictions are a good way to do anything. You can do an open palm, that full palmar contact. Again, this hand was mostly just supporting to make sure his leg didn't want to rotate out towards me again. You can kind of support that, but again, you don't want to just hold that patella. You want to hold like the leg itself. You want to get a little bit lower down or a little bit more to the outside. And you're just holding it gently. You're not actually like pushing or tweaking. If it's uncomfortable, if they're like, you're twisting my leg, then let it fall out to the outside. It's not the worst thing that can happen. All right, so we did some compressions on the upper leg in here. We did some compressions on the internal adductors. So if you think adductors, ADD goes in. Abductors is ABD goes out. So these are your abductors, your IT band. All right. We're gonna scoot down and we can do the same compressions on the shin. Keep in mind on the shin you have a very superficial bony landmark, which is right there. You do not want to put pressure directly on that bone. So you're gonna go on either side of it and you're gonna compress. Again, you can manage your body mechanics however you need to do that, which is you can shift up onto your knees. You could do a pillow or a folded towel, do compressions that way. If your partner is comfortable with it, if it helps you, you can even straddle. So you can bring one leg to the inside of theirs. You can lean. Just keep in mind that this creates more pressure if you are over somebody than when you are sitting down next to them. So be careful with your pressure. Be aware of your body mechanics and how much pressure you're putting on somebody else. So we can compress along here. You can use lotion and you can do a fist up the side, but you want to be very careful with that because your knuckles are very bony, and again, you have that very superficial landmark. There's not a lot of meat to the front of the calf, or the front of the shin. So if you're going to use your knuckles to go up the side, you really want to get the real side of it. So you want to come towards the center to get that landmark here. You want to get the kind of part where you can feel that muscle-y section, soft part. So with that, I'm going to use a little bit of lotion on Hank's thigh. On Hank's calf. So I'm going to do a very loose fist. I'm going to support the outside of his leg with my other hand. I'm just going to press inwards up towards the knee. Similar to the elbow, we have a lot going on with the knee. We're not going to ride right over it with our fist. On the front, you have bony landmarks. Again, you have the head of your bones that connect right in there. You also have the patella, as well as there's a lot of interlaced nerves. There's your innervation of your veins. There's also a lot of lymph nodes in here. So you want to be very gentle when you come to the knee. Now we can do this on the other side of the leg here, but it's a little bit more difficult because there's not as much musculature and you kind of have to rotate his knee in to do that. So we're going to come back out to the side and lift his leg, rotate it just enough so that his leg is pointing up. So that's the patella. And then you're going to do a little bit of lotion, just enough to slide. Place it right here and very, very gently because you don't want to hurt that bone landmark. I'm going to slide your fist up. And again, remember you're putting your knuckles, your wrist, your elbow in line. Sometimes I will do a little bit of a twist. I will put my arm where my hand is parallel to the direction we're going. Sometimes it's perpendicular. It's all about body mechanics. So if I slide in this direction, my wrist would bend this way. If I were to be pushing this way, my wrist cannot slide as easy. It won't go back and forth as easy. So sometimes that's just a support mechanism to rotate your wrist. You do what's comfortable for you. You can also do those kind of C-shaped. You can do little circular frictions with the C shape. You just do effleurage and rub some lotion in and get it around the calf. Some people you'll be able to like grab the whole ankle and you'll be able to get your hands all the way around their leg, and some people you won't. That's okay. That's all about body mechanics and what you can do with that body. All right. Now I'm going to move Hank's leg for a couple of movements, and I'm going to show you some different ways that you can approach it. So we're going to lift his leg. I'm going to take this bolster. I'm going to scoot it towards me at an angle. His other leg is going to stay on it. And I'm going to bring it into a forward position where his foot is on his other knee. And then I'm going to push this back so that it's by his knee. Sometimes people can't relax their knee to touch that bolster. What you can do is supporting their leg, get that bolster out of the way. You just put your thigh under it. So I'm going to come in nice and close to Hank, and my thigh is going to support his knee. So my thigh is right here underneath his leg. Is that comfortable, Hank?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this way is a way to work on someone's adductors right here without getting too close into their personal space, because we rotated it outwards so that way it's not as confined to the inside of the thigh. So this opens it up while allowing it to stay nice and professional, especially while they're wearing sports pants. And in this position, you can do those same compressions. You can use your fingertips stacked to kind of push. Now, with any kind of area where you might be close to personal space, what you should always do is you can start near it and move away, but you want to start away from it and kind of move away from it. So in here, I'm pressing, and then I'm going to lift and move further away and press. So it's one of those things where you can kind of find what body mechanics work for you. Stacked fingers, you do the top of your knuckles. Now this one is one of those ones that, again, is dependent on body mechanics. You can use a forearm on the inner thigh. What you're going to do is that elbow is going to follow your arm. So you're not going to go in, you're going to go kind of a smooth arc away. So with this one, I'm going to pin his pants right there. I'm going to put my elbow on the inside of that pants pin. I'm going to let it ride down. This one can be a little bit intense, and this heavily depends on your body mechanics. Not everybody can bend their back in quite this direction. But you notice that my forearm is sliding off towards his hip. And as it goes, my hand is disappearing behind him. And that elbow is headed for his hip bone. Right about here, I feel like his hip bone is touching there, so I'm going to lighten up my pressure as I go off. So you're just going to lean in, you're going to bring your arm in. You're putting that pressure on that ulnar blade, which is that bone landmark right there. So going in towards the thigh, up the thigh, rotating your arm so that it's falling off of the hip. Follow that arm all the way off of the hip. Relax your pressure as you get towards the hip and fall off. That's a good way to work on the abductors. And you can also do pulling compressions like this, where you're just going to get a good grasp on the inside and then lean back. And then you can also lean forward. Same thing. And some people's legs will move, that's okay. All right. I'm going to scoop your leg up. I'm going to rotate it back here. And that bolster back in place. Let that leg fall. Okay. Now you can use other positions like that for stretching the IT band and the calf, and I'll show you a little bit of that. Camera angles are hard to get with this one, but I will show you as best I can. So one way you can do the IT band is, again, you can bring that leg up. You can kick that bolster down so it's not as intense of an angle. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to compress on the outside of the leg. And it's just going to be a compression right in that hip area, very gently. And then you can do little circular frictions. Now the other thing is, you'll notice I'll rock his hip a little bit. So I'm pressing and rocking in, which stretches that IT band. It's going to rock in, stretching the IT band while I put pressure on it. And then when I release, I'm going to release the pressure on the hip. I'm going to let the leg kind of come back to me. I'm going to press with the IT band and rock the leg in. And you can do that all the way up the IT band a little bit. Again, this is one of those things you're going to go very gentle and slow. I'm not doing huge motions. I'm not rotating his whole leg in. I'm just doing a little rock here. And all that's doing is adding a little bit of a stretch to that motion. I'm going to bring his leg off of the bolster, and I'm going to sit it that way. I'm going to come around, and I'm going to pin his leg with mine. So you can put your foot on it, you can put your knee on it, whatever works best for you. It's best if you can get a good straight angle on them. And we're going to do similar to what we did with the chair massage, where I'm going to lace my hands behind his calf and do some pulls and pushes. So I'm going to interlace my fingers, get up right there at the fold of the leg, and I'm just going to lean towards myself. And sometimes your fingers will come unlaced, and that's okay. You could do it on purpose too. You can unlace your fingers and just slide forward. And you can slide back. Again, remember I used a little bit of lotion, so this is a lot easier. But you can do that interlock. You can go all the way down, all the way down, all the way down, right to that Achilles tendon. Now, if we come back up, we can interlock our fingers, get a good grasp, and then push towards the body. So I am doing a compression. I'm compressing this way and then pushing. I'm compressing this way and pushing. So I'm bringing my hands together into that grasp. I'm getting a good hook, and I'm just leaning forward. Getting a good hook, leaning forward. And that gives a good pull to the calf. If the bolster is in the way, you can always scoot it in different directions. So right here, I'm kind of pushing into the bolster. I can say, can you lift your other leg a little bit? And then I'm just going to push it so that it's supporting just the other leg. There we go. Perfect. You can also just slide down the leg so you can get a good grasp, and then just slide. So you're doing kind of traction along the skin. And then we can bring that bolster back to support your leg again. And then we're gonna get off of his foot and let that fall down. So that's a good front of leg, and then we'll do some of the back of the leg from when we flip them over. This is the part for working on someone when they are prone, which is face down and laying on the floor. There's a couple different ways that you could have them lay that would be comfortable. I usually have them tuck a pillow underneath the chest area just so that their face isn't directly in the floor or on a bed. And then you can, just like Hank did, adjust to make sure that you're comfortable. You can also do a bolster underneath the ankles. So I'll show you that bolster right now. So if you don't mind lifting your legs, there you go. And that bolster there underneath the ankles is going to help with the low back, because otherwise you can be hyperextended. Now, with the back sequence, you're going to be kneeling a little bit more in order to leverage your weight over the person. So if you need an extra bolster, pillow, blanket, or something like that for your knees, then go ahead and get those now. And then you can also try different kinds of positions with pillows to find out what's the most comfortable for people. You might need an extra pillow underneath the abdomen, or you might just need to roll a little bit off to the side. I honestly suggest that your arms are at relaxation where they're not tucked under you, because if they're underneath your body, you're going to be pressing into them, and then it's also at hyperextension for your back right in the middle right here. So try to get those arms relaxed in a place that's not underneath or tucked. So with the back, one thing I'm going to tell you about is when you get to the tailbone, you never press up towards the back, because you don't want to injure or misplace the tailbone by compressing it into the spine. So always be aware of what direction you're going with the back. You can press up from about the mid-back up, and then the mid-back down is going to be towards the feet. So let's get started. One of the easy things you can do with the back is you're going to come to the head, and then you're just going to press gently. So I'm not putting my body, or I'm not using my strength, I'm putting my body weight behind this. I'm just gently lifting my hands and putting my weight on the opposite hand, and then walking them down slowly. Now, if you notice that you're extending further than you feel comfortable, you feel like your knees are going to slide or you're leaning forward too far, you can just adjust forward, but make sure your hands are even. And again, we're using our full palm to do this move. We're not using our fingertips. We're not doing cat claws on their back. And come back to the top. You can rotate out a little bit. Do the sides. If that's uncomfortable on your wrist, you can do a fist. Just be aware when you do a fist, you have to make sure that you don't land on any of the bony landmarks. So pay attention to where their spine is and where their scapula or shoulder blades are. And then be very gentle. Don't put your full body weight on their ribs if you're using a fist, because you're using a smaller contact area. You don't want to end up putting too much weight in a small area. And then again, you want to go slowly down. And you can slow this motion down. We're doing things a little faster because we're recording this. But you can pause the video and go a little slower. Now in this low back, you'll notice I paused for a minute. I'm going to sit here. This feels really nice because that low back is where a lot of tension sits. This is what holds us up all day. These are our postural muscles. Everyone's got low back pain, so this is a good spot to just hang out for a little bit. And you can kind of do like marching in place, where you come back just a little bit and let your palms slide into that low back. Come back just a little bit and slide into that low back and just sit there. Now right here where my hands are, the reason why I stopped there is that's the hip bone. That's going to be that back of that tailbone. You can feel it as a little ridge when you're working there. So when you get to that, you can also hook your hand in right above that hip and just press, again, towards the feet because it's the low back. You can do a little wiggle left to right. That's going to feel really nice because it's going to put a stretch in that low back. All right. I'm going to come off to the side here.
Give me the bolster.
Okay. Now from the side, we have a lot of ability to pull towards us. You could sit cross-legged if it's comfortable for you, and I'll show you both ways, which is either sitting cross-legged or up on your knees. So with this one, what we're doing is we're going to be scooping, and then we're going to let our body weight lean back and pull. That can feel really good, but again, you want to be very gentle and go slow and make sure it doesn't hurt somebody when you're doing it, because it's very easy to put a little too much weight in small areas. So with this one, we're going to start at the shoulder blade. We're going to scoop right under here into that armpit, right underneath that bony landmark, that scapula. And we're just going to place our hand there. And remember, fingers together. Your thumb can ride along or it can be on the side. And I'm just going to lean back a little bit and do a little pull here. So again, I'm not pulling with my arm. I'm just leaning my body back. And you can see that I can get a pretty good leverage. You notice Hank's body moves quite a bit, but I'm not trying to roll him over this way. You can do two hands. then you can just do the same thing where you're walking down that side. And again, this is an area where you want to be gentle just because you're right over the ribs. And then you're also right over that squishy spot right underneath the ribs. And then you can also do this with the hip. You're going to wrap your hand around that hip bone right here. You're going to feel that bone. You can give it a little tug. And you can just relax it back. When you're doing that, you don't want to just let go when you've got them pulled back, because then you're going to drop their hip or their side and it doesn't feel great. So when you are holding someone up like that and you're going to let them go, do so slowly. And they might slip through your hands every once in a while just because sometimes you're using lotion or their shirt is particularly slippery. Something like that might happen. Just remember to be gentle when you're doing it intentionally. So anytime that you're working with someone, whenever you're pulling, go slow, and whenever you release, go slow. Now you can also do the opposite, which is pressing from the spine out. So I'm just laying my hands on Hank, and then I'm leaning forward into him. So I'm not using my arm strength for this, and you'll notice that like my arms and my shoulders and my wrists, I did bow them a little bit, and I brought them back into alignment to make sure they're nice and straight. And this can be done without a shirt on. It can be done with a little bit of lotion. Now here you want your palm to be between the spine and the scapula. Again, you're not pressing on the scapula because that's a bony landmark. It can be very uncomfortable. Just leaning forward a little bit. All right, now I'll show you what that looks like from kneeling. Kneeling may be easier for those who can kneel because what you can do is just sit down instead of leaning your body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scoop into Hank here, and I'm just going to sit slowly. How's that feel?
Feels great.
Is it a little deeper than the last time?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a little bit more of an intense pull because I had a lot more leverage. You'll notice how much more my body moved here. So if someone really likes deep tissue or they really like a lot of pressure, using the kneeling position will be helpful for you. So again, we're going to scoop under here. My hands are spread a little bit further apart so that I get a better grasp. I'm just going to sit. How's that feel?
That's great.
Good. Yeah, so check in with your partner, make sure it's not too much. And if it is, you can just go halfway up. You know, you can just bring it back a little bit. Now this is a fun one because you can really get that hip and lift because you have so much more leverage. Alright, and then when you're pressing out, you might want to back up a little bit, and then you want to press away from you. Going back up a little bit, you're going to press away. And in this case, you're just leaning forward a little bit onto your hands. If it's uncomfortable for your hands or your wrists, you can also do a fist. You want to be very careful with a fist, just because, again, it's a smaller contact area. You can put a lot more weight into a smaller area and it will feel heavier. So if someone likes deep tissue, a fist might be your answer. But if they don't, you want to be very gentle, especially over the ribs and any other bony landmarks, that you're not going to put too much pressure in a small area. So we covered walking down the back, we covered pulling from the sides, we covered the hip. So One other way you can do it, and again, this depends on your body mechanics and how comfortable you feel doing it, you can use your ulnar blade, the side of your forearm, to work on somebody's back. What I would do is I would sit next to them at an angle a little bit, and then just lean in towards them. So it's similar to what we were doing when they were on the chair. But you have to figure out whether or not this works for your body mechanics. For me, this is comfortable enough because this kind of twist in the seated position is comfortable. But for some, this may not be comfortable. You can do little frictions, just very gently moving your arm in a little circle. If you're doing your forearm on someone's back, you don't want to slide unless you have enough lotion that is comfortable, and then with this position it may limit how far you can go. So you may have to lift up, scoot your body, and then move forward. Again, pay attention to where that elbow is if you're going to use this arm, because you don't want to put it directly on the spine. And then as you come down towards the bottom, you'll notice my hand will slide off of his hip so that it rotates so that that elbow ends up in that lower back right above the hip bone. But I'm not like grabbing the back of his leg and his glutes while I move down his back. So you can do a little bit of a stretch and push yourself, but I suggest adjusting your body instead of trying to stretch to get to a further area where it's not comfortable. And then the other thing is relax your hand if you're doing this. Your hand doesn't have to be rigid. It shouldn't be up like this. It shouldn't be holding a fist. Just let it hang down. His shirt has enough glide that I can push and slide down his back easily. When I get to that bony landmark, I make sure that I reduce my pressure, and you can just slide off the side. So it doesn't feel like you abruptly just let go. So you just slide off the side. Alright. So that's a forearm or an ulnar blade move that you can do. Just be aware of your body mechanics. Not every way will be comfortable in doing that. But give it a couple tries. You can do it from different directions. You can also, again, from mid-back up, you can go towards the head. You can go sideways next to them. Do the ulnar blade up. And this may be more comfortable for those who can kneel. Now with this one, you'll notice I do adjust a little bit so that I'm not right on his head with my hand. And then I just let my hand droop down. From this position, you can also reverse your movement and do a shoulder pull, where you're going to scoop right into that trapezius, get that nice shoulder grip, and just give it a little tug. Now, if this doesn't feel great, some people may not like it. One thing you can do, I'm going to adjust your arm. I'm going to bring his arm out to the side a little bit so it's not as strained, because that shoulder was compacted up when it was above his head. So this may make it a little bit more comfortable. Now, some people may be very tight, so when they're in this position with their arms above their head, it may end up locking up their upper body. If it is tight enough that you feel like you're working on a rock, you can ask them, can I adjust your arm down, and then bring their arm behind them and relax it that way. You can do one at a time, but the side you want to work on is the side you're going to bring down, and that's also going to soften that muscle underneath here, that teres major. So that muscle, when you're doing that pull, you can bring the opposite side arm down, and you can scoop into that muscle a little bit easier if it's at a relaxed stance, because that way the muscle isn't pulled tight like a rubber band. All right, you can bring this arm where it's most comfortable for you. So there's some little adjustments you can do, and again, you could have them do just one side or both sides if you need to. but one side at a time allows them to still balance if they've got the pillow underneath them and they have their head propped up. Now, if you have the ability to find equipment like a table, this makes this all a lot easier because then they can be face down without having to support their upper body. But when you're on the bed or on the floor, this is an easier way to do it without them having to have their face right on the floor. All right, we're gonna move to the hips now. So, with the hips, we're going to be pushing towards the feet always. So with the glute muscles, you can push in towards the center or down towards the feet. You don't want to push up. So you're gonna use your fist for this one just because this is a big muscle. It's got a lot of meat to it. It's a lot easier. So you wanna just find that soft spot right there and then put your fists together. You're going to just walk right into it. So you're gonna put your hands there and then you relax out and you can move towards yourself a little bit. And again, you're just leaning your body into it. I'm not pushing with my arms, and I'm not letting my arms wing out and bend as I do this. I'm trying to make sure they're nice and stacked. When you do any kind of movement like this, you'll notice my thumbs sit on top. They don't tuck in because that will strain your thumb. You also don't want it on top because that will also strain your thumb and it will be pokey. So you're just gonna let them sit gently on the sides. Now, one of the things you want to be aware of is, again, those bony landmarks. You want to make sure you're not on that hip bone right here and you're not on the tailbone right here. You have a little triangle of bone right here that is your sacrum. You just want to make sure that you're just on the side of that and then moving out towards the hip. Now, in the hip, you also have a bone. So you'll have that bone right about there. You'll feel like a little tennis ball underneath. You want to make sure you don't press directly on that with a fist because it can be a little uncomfortable. You can work around it, a little bit above it or a little bit behind it, but not directly over bone marks. So just press and relax a little bit, move and press again. And if you're doing this right, you should be able to move their body a little bit with very little pressure. Because again, you're using your body weight, not your arm strength. So when I get to the side of the hip, I do rotate my hands a little bit just so that I can go in a more comfortable direction between that hip bone and that upper part of the leg. Now you can also walk down the side of the leg. That's the IT band. So from that hip down into that knee is the IT band. That can be very, very tight, especially if you're working on someone who's athletic or who works in an office a lot, because in both of those people, that will be a very tight area. It can be uncomfortable. So again, start gently here. And then if a fist is too much, you can always adjust your position and use an open hand. Just be aware of your wrist position and try like rotating. You can sit a little bit superior or above that hip. And then instead of bending your hands back this way, you can go sideways. So you're going to lean towards their feet a little bit. So your body's angled. I'm a little bit diagonal to Hank's body and I'm just leaning. You can also do what we did before, which is when you're kneeling and you're using your ulnar blade. With this one, again, you want to be very careful where that elbow is. You're going to come up next to your person, facing their feet. You're going to find those bony landmarks. So his hip sits right about here, and that tailbone sits right about here. So I can put my hand here as a guide. I'm going to put my elbow right below it and very gently lean into that. And again, my pressure is going towards his feet and my hand is relaxed. You can adjust a little bit like we did before where you're walking out from the sacrum. And being very careful where your elbow is not to land on a bone. You do little circular frictions where you're going to put your elbow a little lower, and then you just move it in a circle like you're drawing a circle on the back of his knee. And then slow is a good idea. Always go slow and gentle at first, and you'll get better at it. You can also rotate your arm a little bit if this position is more comfortable. This does end up putting more pressure on your elbow, so it creates a smaller point of contact. So just be careful as you go. Go slow, go gentle, and check in with your partner. From here, you can go right beneath that glute muscle, right into the top of the hamstrings. So right where that glute meets the leg is a fold right here. If it is comfortable for your body mechanics, you can scoot down a little bit and lay that arm there. This spot is unique in that it can take a lot more pressure than other parts of the body. When you're pressing here, you can actually use quite a bit more force, but you still want to check in with your partner and make sure that they're comfortable with it. But that's why you can use your elbow here, as well as the fact that like this area in particular is mostly muscle, so you're not going to land on a bony landmark when you're right in that hip in the back of the glute. From here, you can also change to facing them and using your fists. Now I'm lining mine up like this so that I can get across the back of the leg. If your partner is a larger person, this can be very comfortable because it makes it a larger area of contact that isn't pointed or small. And then you can also walk down the hamstrings a little bit. Yeah, that's the one that feels really good. If your partner stands a lot during the day, this is going to feel amazing. And come back up to here and do it again. And again, what we're doing is we're lifting and adjusting, and then putting pressure and lifting and adjusting the other hand slowly. So that way we're not pulling their pants down or like causing friction on their skin. You can do it with lotion, where you would put lotion and then go down with your fist. Just be very gentle when you do. You can adjust to seated here, and you can do another pull. So just like we did down the sides, we're going to get into their adductors. That's ADD, adductors. And what we're going to do is just roll it towards us. My other hand is a support hand. We're kind of just squishing those muscles and giving a little rotation. You want to go very gentle here because you don't want to rotate and torque someone's leg too much. So you're just doing pressure into your palm. Just enough that their leg moves, but you're not moving their whole leg and rotating it. Their toes shouldn't start pointing in when you do this. Now this is a sensitive area. You should talk to your partner about if they're comfortable with you pulling on here, because again, if they are tender, sensitive, like that's one of the places it will show up. Just because most people are never touched on the inner thigh in this position. So just be aware that like if you are working here, start slow, ask permission, make sure that it's comfortable before continuing to go further. Just be aware that you are also working with the knee complex against the floor. This is where a bolster is really helpful because then it reduces that pressure on the knee directly in the floor. And it reduces the amount of like twisting that will happen with the leg. Now, if your partner doesn't like a bolster, but this is an uncomfortable move, what you can do is just adjust. I'm going to lift your leg, put your knee under it, and there you go. Now you got a temporary bolster, and it's reduced that pressure. Does that feel different? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the other thing is, because I'm sitting here, I'm already supporting his legs with my my legs essentially, so I don't need that support hand to keep his leg from twisting. And when the leg is supported like this, especially since I have it further up than I would with a standard bolster, the side of his knee right here is softened a little bit because it put that adductor into a shortened position. So you can kind of do little squishes here where you're just pushing down, hooking and coming up, and then pushing down again. And again, you're using your body mechanics. You're not doing squeezy hands. You can also do that up the calf a little bit as well. So I'm doing a push, pull, and then I readjust and I do a push, pull. You can also use a standard pillow underneath their legs as well, just like the one that Hank has under his head right now. And that will support the legs as well as not allowing that to hyperflex the ankle. That's the other reason you'd want to use a bolster, is because when you start pushing on the calf, you don't want to push that ankle flat on the table, floor, or bed. So a standard pillow, a bolster, or even just your knee this way will make it so that they're not flexing as far as they would be if you were to just put pressure right on there. Now, if they're like, that's not enough pressure, one of the things that you can do that's really easy on your body is put your hand on their foot. You want it to be right where that curve of the arch is, and right where the part of the foot where right above the toes. You want to put your hand there and then press down, and then that's going to extend those muscles. It's going to pull on them, and then you can do the same motion. Because you've got their muscle extended, it's going to feel like a deeper stretch because you've already got pressure going on in that system. You've got it extended, like pulled like a rubber band. You're adding more pressure with your hand. But your hand doesn't have to do more work in order to create that deep feeling. Some people may have, with the calf, some sensitivity to it because a lot of people get Charlie horses or that cramp in the back of the leg. If that happens, you can just relax it and then using both hands compress. And you want to be careful that you're not pushing their shin bone into yours, but compressing if they're having a Charlie horse will help. It can be uncomfortable just because of that flexion or extension of the leg, which is why supporting it will help. It will reduce the amount of Charlie horses that happen during massage. But if it is happening, that compression is going to make a big difference. So just sit there and hold it like that. So again, you're just going to put your hands there and then leaning forward into it. Now, because it's so close to me, my arms are bent, but I'm tucking them into my body so that my body moves together. I'm not winging out and pushing with my arms like I'm trying to do that. So with this, again, you can do like a scoop. So pressing, pulling, and then readjusting, pressing, pulling. And then readjusting. And then here at the ankle, you can adjust. You can either scoop under if you've got them supported and bring that down as you scoot out, or you can scoot this way and leave your knee under it in order to support. And then with this one, I'm pushing on both sides of the main bone here and the Achilles tendon. So I'm just pushing a little bit into that tendon. How's that feel?
Very good.
And with the leg, you can walk up the leg as well. So I'm going to bring his leg down. So you can come to kneeling. This is a kneeling position. If their leg is not supported, I want you to wrap your hands around, especially if you got the ankle and they're small enough for this to happen. Just wrap your hands around to support a little bit. And then be gentle. gentle because you don't want to push that flexion on the ankle. Remember, we're not pushing with our thumbs. They're just sitting there. They're just relaxed. And then with this one, you can rock left and right. So left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand. Now we're right on the muscle here, and we're right above or right below the back of the knee. The back of the knee is very sensitive because that's where you have a lot of lymphatic nodes, as well as the innervation of the nerves and the veins and all of that into the leg. So you do not want to put all of your weight on the back of somebody's leg. When you get to the back of their knee, be very, very gentle. Don't put a lot of weight. You can put your hand there, but don't lean your body into it because you can end up causing damage or causing discomfort. The other thing is you have your patella, that little bone in the front of your leg, and if you press that directly into the floor, it does not feel good. So you want to be very gentle with that. But you can do like a very gentle, just place your hand there and then lift off, scoot up, and then move into that upper leg. And you can walk up the leg. I changed to a fist here just because I don't want to be grabbing inappropriately on my partner as I move up their leg. And then right where that glute meets that hamstring, that's where we stop the up motion. Because again, remember, for the glutes, we want to go down. With this, we're pressing into the leg. So we're not quite at the spot where we'd be compressing the spine because we're staying in the meat of the leg. So once you get to that kind of area where that hamstring meets the glute, you're going to stop there and you can either reverse or go back down. One other way you can work on the calf is you can bring it up and you can do a pull. So this one, I'm going to switch to sitting, and the height of your partner will also influence this. You can end up putting their foot on your shoulder if they're tall enough. Now Hank is just shy of being that, so I'm going to support him with one hand, and I'm just going to lean with my other hand. What that does is it gives me a different angle to grip. So if you can't press down into the floor, it doesn't feel comfortable, it's hurting their knee, this is an alternative for that calf. And again, just a push-pull. And you'll notice my support arm is locked into my side, so it's not going anywhere. I'm not winging it out like this, because at this point I lose all of my pressure with my arm. You want to make sure it's tucked in. If you need to, you can adjust so that your body is behind the foot. So that way your elbow is going into your side gently, and then you can lean with your body. And their leg will move with you as you lean a little bit. But the idea is that when you lean, you're pulling this hand back a little bit further than your hand that's supporting because it's locked into your abdomen. If you have their leg on your shoulder, if that is comfortable for you, you can actually do the interlock that we did when they were sitting in the chair. So you can, I'm going to use my leg as a support just to show. You can do the interlocked hands and then lean back and scoop and pull. You can do that all the way down. All right. Now with the leg, you can also do some stretching. You can just bring this up. That's going to stretch the quad. You can bring it in a little bit. Ooh, I heard a pop in his hip. Are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you can bring that down and then just gently release it back and bring it back out. But when it comes to stretching, you always have to be careful with body mechanics and not stressing somebody else's muscles, because you can push a lot harder than they can manage to move their own muscles. And if they're tight, it can cause an injury or you can strain that muscle. So always be gentle. If you're going to stretch someone, ask, is this okay? Where do you feel that stretch? Should I stop here? And then back up just a little bit more than you think you should go. So if like I bring his leg up and he feels a stretch here, we're going to stop here. And in fact, I'm going to drop it just a little bit so it's not intense. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm going to get the bolster for the feet. And have you lift your feet. So with the feet, it's easy to either kneel behind them or to be off to the side, depending on how you want to approach it. But I like being behind them. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press. I'm supporting with one hand and just pressing into the heel with the other. It's a good way to start is that heel. You can just do little circles. You're rolling that heel. And then you can switch to a fist and just walk that down the foot. And you notice my back hand is supporting the toes as I press because I don't just want to push on one toe and bend it further than the rest. And then just go gentler as you get to the toes. You're then going to come together. Remember that like hand rolling thing that we did before in the seated chair position. You can do that here. Or pushing apart a little bit, very gently. And again, those thumbs are just along for the ride. They're not pushing. You do the opposite where you're rolling away. So you're kind of pulling on the front of the foot. And you can do as well where you're going to essentially follow down the foot line, kind of feeling out where all those bones are. So in this case, you are going to use your thumb, but your thumb is going to be a support. Your thumb is not going to be the part of your hand that is creating the pressure. You're going to be using your fingertips. You can lean to kind of do that. So you're going to lean back just a little bit. You're kind of pulling and then just supporting with your thumb. And what I'm doing is I'm just feeling for those bones. I'm finding the squishy part in between them. And I'm just putting a little bit of pressure there. And I'm walking down towards the toes. So right here, I'm right between the big foot or the big toe and the second toe. You can kind of shift a little bit to grab that little toe and give it a squish. And you can come back up and repeat going down. Right between the second and third toe. If you notice you press with your thumbs here, that's okay. Just remember, don't do this. Don't dig in with your thumbs bent. Try to stack your joints at any given time if you're going to use them. So my right finger is between the the third and the fourth. Now we're going to come up here and do it again. Between the fourth and the fifth, that pinky toe. Now with this one, when I got the outside of the foot, you can kind of give it a little bit of pull away from the other toes. That feels really nice. You can also do both hands and pull apart. So you're kind of just leaning in here and pulling apart. Hank, do you mind if I remove your sock?
Go right ahead.
Okay. I'm going to remove Hank's sock so you can see where I'm pulling because it's a little harder than not. So what I was doing is I was going down to right here on the toes. So I'm not stopping in between them in this little gap. I'm stopping right above them in that pad, that like part that we walk on the most. And then I would adjust and then go down the toes. So when we're talking about the side here, we were walking down the side, we stopped in that pad spot, and we did that little pull across. Now I'll tell you a secret. Some people have stinky feet and that's normal. One thing you can do, and it can be like a nice add-on as well, is if you get a dish towel, you can heat up that dish towel after you dampened it. Just put it in the microwave after you wring it out real well. And then you can wrap it around their foot and just give it a little like warm, soak with that warm towel. You always want to test it on the inside of your arm before you put it on somebody. Make sure that you can tolerate it and they can tolerate it before you just like press it on. But you can put that towel over their foot, and just like over the sock, you can do those compressions. It'll feel really good, and then that will like clean their foot as well. So if your partner has sticky feet and you don't want to touch them because of that, that's one way to solve it, and also be a little bit doting, make something really nice. So you can also bring your hand underneath that ankle, one hand behind the ankle, and give it a gentle little tug by just leaning back. This is a traction. They'll feel it up their calf a little bit. You can also adjust where your hand underneath is a little bit more forward and you're giving it more of a stretch if they have really tight calves. And that will stretch that Achilles tendon and that calf. With your hands a little bit forward, you can prop their leg and then your hand in the arch. You can give it a little roll. Roll in the opposite direction a little bit. And this is just a gentle motion. I'm not forcing it further than it wants to go. And then just bring your hands back here. And I'm going to press on the foot. So I'm just extending that Achilles tendon. And I'm leaning into it with my body. Again, I'm supporting the toes, so I'm not just pushing one toe, I'm pushing all of them together. Just do compressions. You can also use your fingertips to do circular frictions. You're going to keep your fingertips together and you're going to lean forward and you're going to roll your hands in little circles. This may not be comfortable for everybody. That's why we started with the fist. You could also do little circular frictions with your fist. And then you can just roll down the foot and go from heel to toe. So rolling down that foot. This is another place you can use some lotion, but also if people have dry feet, a little lotion might be very helpful for their skin. Now again, depending on your body mechanics, you can also lift their leg and do an ulnar blade right in there. But only if it's comfortable for your body. Now with this one, I'm mostly just resting it there. I'm not going up and down. I'm just being very gentle to position and make sure I have a good amount of full contact. I don't want to just be balancing on the outside of their foot. I'm making sure that I've got that whole arch against my arm. And you can repeat those in any variety that you like. If there's a particular technique that they really like, you can kind of repeat that or adjust it to be what they like the most. You don't have to do all of these in the exact sequence that we've shown you. There's one other one, which is you can put your hands together. You're just going to squish on that Achilles and lean. And you're squishing right here on the edge of that foot. So you just squish together and then lean a little bit. Alrighty, I'm going to give your sock back.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's the feet and the legs. This is the little bonus part I'm going to teach you. This is a standing position type of thing that you can do on the floor. It's hard to do on the bed, but you can do it on the bed. A lot of people here have issues with sciatica. That's where that joint at the back where your tailbone meets your, the meat of your gluteus gets impinged and it pinches on that nerve. It can send shooting pains from your glutes or your butt down into your leg or up into your lower back. So people with sciatica, they struggle. They might be limping when they're walking, all that kind of stuff. This is just a really easy thing you can do for your partner that will help alleviate it. So what you're going to do is have your partner laying on their back and then figure out which leg is having the sciatica. So usually the side that's hurting is going to be the side that's got the sciatica. You're going to lift their leg, so grasping underneath their ankle. You're going to bring it up in a straight leg raise. You just want to bring it up a little bit until it's comfortable. So if you notice that their knee starts trying to bend, you want to back out just a little bit. So how comfortable is that?
That's too much.
Too much. Okay, so we're going to back out a little bit. Now what I can do is I can lean forward with my leg, and I'm going to put his foot into my thigh. I just stand here, so that way I'm not bending over holding his leg. Is that comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
Good. You feel a little bit of a stretch down the back of your leg?
Yes.
Good. So some people may have more or less flexibility. I have friends who can put their leg straight up and still not feel a stretch, and they're hyper flexible. And I'm like Hank, where my leg doesn't go much further than this. And that's okay. You want to go to where you're comfortable. So we're just going to hang out here for a little while. This is a kind of stretch where you want to count to about 20 to 30. You're just going to wait for it to feel good, kind of start relaxing. Sometimes you might notice that their like foot will twitch or something like that. That's okay, because what's happening is the muscles are kind of fighting. They're like a tight rubber band that doesn't want to let go. And when we have them in this position, we're holding that stretch for them, so their muscles are fighting us. And eventually those muscles are going to stop fighting, and they're going to say, well, I guess this is how we are now. It's going to let go of that tension. And that's when you stop feeling that twitching. That's where you know it's good. Not everybody will, but some people do. The second position we're going to do is you're going to go back to holding their ankle. Relax your leg away. You're going to bring this hand forward. Again, you notice my stance widened. I'm bending my knees. I'm going to bend his knee, and I'm going to bring it up towards his chest. My right hand is guiding it in so his leg doesn't wing out to the side. We're going to bring it up towards the chest. How's that feel? Good stretch
That's
there?
good, yeah.
All right. This is, again, where you can put that foot into your hip. You want to be careful, because when you do that, you notice his foot went from pointing to bent. It's going to increase that stretch. So if you need to adjust, you can bring your foot forward a little bit more. And then we're going to just hang out there for a little while as well. If you're on a bed, what you can do is, I'm going to show you both of those from a seated position. So I'm going to bring your leg back out, just gentle. So if I'm in a seated position, I can bring it into my shoulder and my arm, and I can hold his leg this way. So that way I'm not straining. It's mostly through gravity. I'm leaning into his foot to hold it there. And then depending on your partner, if they're a lot larger or they've got longer legs, you might be able to put it on your shoulder and just sit there. And then with the bent knee here, again, I can just use my shoulder to bring it up. So I've got it tucked into my arm right here, so I've got a lot of work there. And then I can also, with this position, I can put it into my shoulder, tuck it right there. And then that means I'm hands-free, I'm not doing a lot, it's a lot more comfortable. I'm literally just sitting here leaning into his foot, and it doesn't take a lot of effort. Now, if you've got an athlete, you can also press along the back of the leg, but in this position, it's already at extension, it's strained. So if you're doing that, start gentle, be very careful. You don't want to overdo it on the back of the leg. All right. Now the third one, I'll show you from seated, and then we'll switch to standing. I'm going to bring his foot down. I'm going to back out of that stretch a little bit. And then I'm going to bring it across his other leg. And I'm going to push his hip and his knee across. So I'm going to rotate the body. So this hand is supporting, and this hand is supporting the knee. How's that feel?
That's quite a stretch.
Yeah.
It's good.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that one, I moved a little quick. You might want to go a little slower into that movement, and then check in with your partner as you go. But what you should feel is they should feel a little bit of a stretch from down the leg into that hip and a little bit of the lower back. And again, your hand is supporting just so that it's not the full weight of his leg on his hip. This is the one that's really great for sciatica because it's opening up that channel that's usually compressing that nerve. All right. And you're going to gently back out. Bring that leg up before the hip hits the bed all the way. And there you go. And then I'll show you from standing. So from standing, I brought his leg up. I brought it in. And then from standing, I'm going to bring it down and across. I'm going to cross him and give it a little bit of weight. So you notice my knee shifted. I'm not using my lower back with this. So I shifted my weight, where my hand is putting weight on his knee to rotate him, and this hand is pulling with me to rotate him. This might not be comfortable because, as you notice, my back is bent, but sometimes some people can't kneel or it's not great. All right, I'm going to gently bring his leg back out and down. And that's a little bit of extra content for sciatic relief. And then usually you want to do it on both sides to make sure that you get the full hip girdle opened up a little bit in the back. Alrighty. That's the class. Hand up. So why are we putting this couples class together? Well, I love to teach, so I am always happy to share my massage therapy skills with anybody who asks. I love that I get to teach the community a little something every year. We've done this couples class for the last 3 years, including some special events out in Durham, North Carolina, where we had a group of people who asked me specifically to come out for it. It's just a good way to have a nice date night with a partner. It's a new skill you can learn and use with your partner or your friends. It's a healthy way to add to your relationship and to show that you love and care for somebody as well as caring for their health. I think it's just a really supportive way to do something fun that brings massage into the community, and it's wonderful to be able to release it shortly after Valentine's Day so couples can try it out. Yeah, it's a good introduction. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you learned something really cool and helpful today. And remember that we did floor massage today. This was part 2 of 2. You could go back and watch the chair massage video as well. And if you like this, you can subscribe or you can go to our website and sign up for our newsletter to stay in touch. Also, I want you guys to remember to go support Hank Art, who helped us with the videography and the editing. So go ahead and show him a little love and support. He does woodworking on his channel.